It's all the time. You guys want to have some tea? So here's some tea. Did you know that Mary Todd Lincoln, she's actually made infamous not just because she's the first lady, but because she went into madness. You see, back in May of 1875, a Chicago court determined that Mary Todd Lincoln, that's right, former first lady, she was insane and she should be institutionalized in an Illinois facility. You see, Robert Lincoln, the son, he testified against his mother because he was worried about her erratic behavior, refusing to change her clothes. She was clutching a pistol in her gown. She obviously had an opiate addiction, and he thought it would endanger the family legacy if it was ever made public. You see, Lincoln was already considered, volatile. And her elaborate displays of grief after her husband's assassination in 1865, she was condemned as being dramatic and unladylike. Even more troubling, though, that there was testimony that she submitted to the court about an Indian. So Mary had said she was referring to a phantom who visited her bedroom every night. And this is what she said, that he put slits in my eyelids and sews them open, always removing the wires by dawn's first light. So the jury in Chicago needed only 10 minutes to reach that verdict. Doctors were quick to link Mary Todd's nervous temperament to a host of contributing factors. Her history she had migraines, depression, they claimed mood swings, and then the deaths of her 4 children. It really put the pressures on the First Lady, and then, obviously, the most crucial was the point-blank assassination of her husband. But her versions of the events that took place and then all these visions that she kept talking about kind of came on late in life. And she was visited not only by the spirits of her children or even her husband, even Abe, but a mysterious Indian spirit. Say native indigenous person to Turtle Island. So that spirit was just this brutal reminder, actually, of today. You see, Abraham Lincoln's, he's got a much further extensive history back in 1862 when 38 Dakota Indian peoples were hung all together in Minnesota. And it is, and it still remains, the largest execution in U.S. history on U.S. soil. And it was rationalized by the punishments of the Dakota War for 1862. And this execution was just one of many genocidal efforts to forcibly remove Dakota people from Minnesota after the territory was granted statehood. Though treaties exchanged, they claimed that Dakota land was exchanged for food and money, and the U.S. government left the Dakota on the verge of starvation with no other choice but to raid for food. So in November of 1861, there were nearly 500 Dakota men went on trial. Most of them didn't even have legal representation. They didn't even speak English. But more than 300 were sentenced to death only after a few minutes of deliberation. And it was actually President Abraham Lincoln who personally reviewed the convictions. Did you guys know this? And he ordered the mass execution of 38 Dakota and commuted other sentences to the internment, in addition to nearly 1,600 Dakota women and children and elders. They were sent to live at the Fort Snelling concentration camps, where poor living conditions and diseases such as the measles, it killed hundreds of them. Then by April, Minnesota voided the treaties in order to drive the Dakota completely out, and enacted legislation making it illegal for Dakota to occupy the newly even formed state. To ensure that the Dakota never returned again, a bounty was set aside by the government for each scalp of a Dakota member. So, is it warranted? Were the visions that Mary could have been having associated to the acts of what Abraham Lincoln did? You see, there's a lot of myths about Abraham Lincoln. I'm just going to say this. Abraham Lincoln was not who you thought he was. And It's not at all entertaining that something so tragic and horrible is it goes on without being remembered on this day, because today would have been the day, December 26th. And so I'd like to take my time here and acknowledge the land that I'm standing on here today, telling you the story. Is the land of the Pokagon, Potawatomi, the Wee, the Kickapoo, the Lenni Lenape, known as the Delaware, and the Miami, as well as the Shawnee, and even the Muscoutin, who were not part of the St. Mary's 1818 Treaty. I'd like to say that I am very grateful to be here and to be reconnecting with so many of our distant cousins all over the world. Indigeneity is all over the world. And what we think we know about a particular president or any kind of a famous people is that why isn't, these darker truths wanted? Why isn't a discussion? I mean, I'm sure it's the same reason that Robert didn't want the public to, look badly upon the actual events that took place. So, I don't think that he's the great emancipator. Abraham Lincoln was definitely not an okay dude. And even the word emancipation doesn't mean what we think it does. And so until we really sit down and we really start having these conversations, we're not going to fully understand just how redacted history is and how problematic that can be, because redaction of history is erasure. And so I think Abraham Lincoln was definitely the merciless exterminator. That's what he was great about doing. Even the greatness of the country is about enforcement. It's not about being wonderful or good or kind. It's about a great force. So, just some things to think about in history that are true. And I like to talk about these things because I don't like to see people who are manipulated and they're making choices on redacted informations. Because what I know is, if you tell your whole version of your truth, and the next person tells their version of the truth, we're going to see something a little bit different. But to prize or praise a person who not only committed the largest mass execution, at least that's what we'll call that time period, because there were so many throughout the world. I feel like it's truly damaged us. It's damaged all of us. It's created dysfunction in our family, the way we connect or don't connect with each other, the depths of our conversations. It's hard to even sit down and make time to have them. And then you have others just avoiding, and it's kind of the point, to keep us all just completely so caught up that we don't have time to stop and rest. I think they make bigger strides for themselves and gain more when we can't. I hope the next cup is with you. I'd like to say thank you for the space that we co-created today.